Welcome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, panel. We're going to have an engaging and hopefully productive and informative discussion, hopefully with a little bit of debate and disagreement as well, just to make it interesting for people at the end of the day. But it's a big topic, paid user acquisition. It's one that we've obviously heard a lot about in the last few years. And I think there's some changes to the way we perceive paid user acquisition, which are underway right now, that I hope we can bring out during the course of the discussion. First of all, we'll let the panelists introduce themselves. Then I'll introduce myself, and we'll get into the talk.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colin Miles. I work for a company called InternetQ PLC, which is a global mobile marketing specialist. We have a mobile advertising platform called Minimob, which is a performance-based advertising platform which enables app developers to run user acquisition campaigns based entirely on results. And that's something that I'm going to focus on through the course of the conversation today. I have various hats. Put my chairman hat, chairman of the emeritus of the Mobile Ecosystem Forum, which is a global mobile association. We've held many events here in Thailand, so I'm quite familiar with the Thai market and the Thai mobile community. And I'm also a judge for the mobile app competition for the GSMA Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. So I spend a lot of time in and around apps.
I'm Raja. I'm part of the Adatha team, which is a performance-based mobile ad network. And we help advertisers and publishers in finding out ways to monetize their traffic and also finding out best traffic for their mobile application. So I handle the technical aspects over there, and that's it about me. Yeah.
Hello. Good afternoon, Thailand. So I'm the founder of clinkad.com, and we do advertisements, and we are open both sides for advertisers and publishers too. We have a booth outside. You can have a look. If you have any questions, there is somebody to attend to you. And I work in this company, and we are open to go for partnerships. If anybody wants, they can go to the booth. It is my first time in Thailand to come to exhibit like this. Thank you very much.
Hello. I'm Chris Steedman, MD of MSC Saatchi Mobile for Asia Pacific. We're in a position where we sit as an agency who been buying mobile media for, this is actually our 10th year, which may sound a bit mad because the iPhone only came out less than 10 years ago, but we did it on the old Java handsets. So we've been there right from the start. And we buy mobile advertising for clients all over the world, such as Amazon, Microsoft. Regionally, we work with Zalora. And we focus on performance. So we've got a fair understanding of where the industry's been, where it's going, and I'm very proud of being able to sit in a kind of impartial perspective in a debate such as this.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for joining our panel as well as a late addition to bring another perspective from the agency side to the table here. Just quickly on me, my name is Patrick. I'm the founder and CEO of Priori Data. We are the mobile app store intelligence company for the 99%. We offer market data and competitive intelligence data to companies that don't have thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars to spend on market information and strategy. So, group, I wanted to kick off the conversation with just setting the stage a little bit with the market environment. I think we've heard a lot of talk today about the cost of acquiring users is continuing to increase. We know that the large established players in this space are leveraging their brands, they're leveraging their existing portfolios to cross-promote their games. They're really crowding out a lot of the smaller players. And consumers have seen a lot of ads. So what is the role and why is it important? And if I'm a developer, should I really be considering paid user acquisition right now? When does that make sense for me? And when should I maybe look to other channels to grow my app if I don't have millions of dollars in budget to spend?
Yeah, it's a major challenge. Of course, the big game guys like King have spent hundreds of millions of dollars per year on getting their games out there, and they continue to do so, and they have very good metrics for doing so. My view is very simple. We're a performance-based network, so we do user acquisition based on results. So if you have an app which generates revenue and you wish to have a return on that investment for your spend, every single user that you acquire, you are expecting to get a return on that investment. So it should be a profitable business formula. So if you run a successful user acquisition campaign, it is because you have made a profit on that campaign. And like any business, if you continue to make a profit, you continue to grow, then you'll keep doing that. So for me, it's a very simple formula.
So my views here are like, we have a lot of applications launched every day. It's not a few applications, there are hundreds of applications launched every day. And it's literally not possible for an application to get in the top charts of the App Store, or even like without advertising, and people may not know about that application. There have been a lot of applications which has been not downloaded more than 100 times in the App Store. So the app discoverability is the key. Basically, the apps get lost in this competitive environment in the App Store. So the key is that to take the app to the targeted users is the most important thing which the developer has to focus. And they have to do targeted advertisement. For example, as he said, it's going to be an CPI network or a CPA network. So we need to figure out where the customers are, where the target customers are, and how to reach them, and ensure that you target the right audience for your application. That's the key here.
Yeah, I agree to Raja. And in this world, what I have seen throughout all the other ad networks, some apps which are getting downloaded, people follow those apps. So if this app does not have shareability things in it, it does not get suits to the top 10 or top 100, something like that. And people have to make their app shareable and also have to advertise it in the right way. There, Clink Ads comes in, so you can try. Thank you.
I agree, it's got more difficult. I think if you look at the price you pay for an install on Facebook, it's grown probably every market in the world over the last 3 years. Even, I was talking to Hotel quickly earlier about Instagram, just even that came out in the last 6 months or so, and the price of that has gone up tremendously already because people are more savvy about where things work because they can see the targeting capabilities Facebook have. But I think it's just about smarter planning. I think it's about understanding that there are hundreds of thousands of millions of devices being activated every day, which means in turn lots of new impressions. And you kind of need to go where everyone isn't going. Everyone's going to Facebook. So you'll get some traction there, but you're going to have to pay quite a high CPI for that. It's just being smarter, working out where the new inventory sources are, because there is a surplus of inventory, and if anyone says to you they don't have it, I wouldn't believe them. It's just the fact is that some of the prices have been kept quite high by certain publishers and networks, and so I think there are lots of ways you can find cheaper quality installs. It's just being smart about it in the planning phase.
So a couple of interesting themes that have come up in this. One of them is discoverability, position in the top charts. One of the things that we've seen is that 90% of the apps that make it into a top 200 position even are out within a week. So it's a very finite period of time. And if the cost of acquiring those users continues to increase, you have a very short window. We've heard a lot today about how developers are moving past just monitoring the installs towards actually monitoring engagement, usage, interaction with events, and ultimately revenue. My question to the advertising networks is, how are you adopting and evolving your business models to move past a CPI-based payment towards something that may be more in line with the goals of the developers today? Are we going to see some of that in 2016?
Well, I think from a performance guy, I'm going to talk about engagement and performance as the only metric you can use and the only metric you should use. In terms of our view on post-install event tracking, it's absolutely critical. You can only work on KPIs to make a successful campaign make sense. So all of the post-event tracking that Ronan talked about, for example, has to be in your logic. You have to understand where you are going to monetize that audience. So it's critical. We're connected with 5 different tracking guys. We do our own server-to-server tracking. Customers like King have their own fingerprinting systems. You must measure, monitor, track every single thing, every single cent, and every single dollar you get returned on that investment. And you, as an ad network, must sell results. That's my opinion. I think the entire industry is shifting to performance. It could be quicker than we imagined. People thought 18 months. Now it looks like 8 to 12 months. Even non-incent traffic is now being, how should we say it, discounted and thought to be more or less the same as any other traffic, as long as you get a user who does something at the end of the advertising process. So we are pretty sure that the traffic mix, incent, non-incent, is changing, and we think that everything is based on results. That's our viewpoint.
Yeah, I agree to Colin, and I believe that this 2016 would be a game changer regarding to this app monetizations. Prices are going cheaper, not going, CPI rates are dropping like hell, and it will change the complete industry.
CPI rates are dropping?
Yeah, dropping.
Which markets?
So Southeast Asia, I'm not talking about Europe. Europe and USA as not changing a little bit. It's completely the same. Southeast Asia market are dropping, and it will be a game changer. Any comments?
Well, I mean, I'd love to buy it off you. How cheap can you get it? I mean, I think basically, if you haven't been in post-install campaigns last year, the year before, then you're really behind the curve. This isn't a change this year. It's been happening for the last few years. So I think the key thing is just to get your tracking in, work with the MMPs, measure everything you can, demand from the networks that you do work, and they optimize 2 post-install events, multiple post-install events, ones which are most important that drive your revenue, and that's the best way to do it. I think you might not like me for saying this, but also paid advertising does help. There are other ways to drive good installs, having a good app store optimization approach, focusing on your organic installs, optimizing your landing environments in iTunes and Google Play will drive huge volumes organic, and it costs a fraction of the price in terms of actual cost per install. So have a look at things like that. I feel that that's a bigger change for this year in the region, looking at your organics and looking after them better. Because if you can look after that, then we've got some clients who don't spend much at all, and they're top of the ranking. Someone like Carousel in Singapore has been #1. They don't spend much at all because they've got such a good, loyal user base. They look after their organic users and works very well. So you just kind of have the right mix.
On the question of mix, one other topic that is, I think, on more people's minds this year is perhaps the mix between, if you have 10,000 in advertising budget, how much should you allocate towards user acquisition, and where does actually retargeting come into play? Do any of the panelists have a comment on the value of retargeting as part of your marketing budget with mobile in this part of the world?
Yes, mobile retargeting is the most important part actually. The life of a mobile app in a user's device is being drastically coming down. So we have a lot of similar applications coming up in the App Store on a regular basis. So with the growth of the location-based mobile applications, which are like gaining a lot of momentum these days, and it's really important to retarget your users in a regular basis. For example, if an event-based application is having a regular events coming up in those area, they have to retarget their ads focusing those particular event. And so going on, I really guess that retargeting can only help the advertisers to keep monetizing their mobile application.
I think just retargeting, it's just make sure you have the right approach. I mean, you don't, it's like I was at the panel about LTV, and it's exactly the same approach with retargeting. You need to segment your audiences, know your high value audiences, and retarget them very differently to those who've never engaged with you. Because if you start spamming ads at the guys who have not opened your app in 90 days, you're only going to piss them off more. So just, focus on doing it the right way, with a smart strategy, and retargeting will work for you. Without a doubt, more budget is going from acquisition to retargeting. So if you have the right approach, it will definitely work for you.
Correct. The retargeting has to be based on the particular user, the user's behavior within your application. So that's how it actually becomes successful. Else, doing retargeting blindly is not going to help you. It has to be based on your user's behavior in your application.
I have a question about the right time to engage a paid acquisition campaign. You mentioned in order for performance to work, you need to have an understanding of what your LTV is. That's difficult in the early life cycle of the app. You can try to model that, of course, as best you can, but it's imprecise. In the soft launch phase of a game, can you sparingly, smartly utilize paid acquisition to help build a data set from which you can then take a larger scale campaign once you know more?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a standard approach. We look at a kind of formula between paid acquisition, organic acquisition, and then the yield that is driven from an app. So you have to correlate those 3 points, and then you can increase the budget as the proportion increases with you. So it's a kind of a formula that you follow.
Do you have any tips on the best percentage allocation between those pieces?
Well, I think in terms of what we've seen for the games that we are running, we've seen that the paid campaign in the tens of thousands will generate an organic in what we matchmake several thousands, and then we can yield from the advertising in that, like offer wars, for example, hundreds. So it goes tens, thousands, hundreds, and then it reverses after about a month.
Thank you. We have about 8 minutes left, and we have 3 advertising network representatives on the stage and 1 agency. If I'm a developer, I look out there and I see so many potential opportunities of people that I can work with. If I were a developer, what is the best way for me to choose the network that will perform best for me? How can I do my diligence? How do I select the best network? And what role do you play in helping those developers make the right decision?
I'll take this one. I think it's a really tough question because, if you're anyone who has an app and you have maybe got some investment or you just released an app, and you will most undoubtedly receive at least 50 LinkedIn messages from 50 different ad networks telling you that they're the best thing since sliced bread. That's a problem, and it can be very confusing. It is a bit of a mess at the moment. There's a consolidation happening in the mobile ad space at the moment, but it's not happening quick enough. So I think the best thing to do is always test on trusted placements. Do the soft launch stuff you mentioned earlier about you use Facebook, and because you can manage it yourself, and it'd be quite simple to do so. It's very easy to do those type of tools, but it's tough. It's tough. I will clearly say speak to an agency like ourselves, but if not, someone like an MMP will have a good understanding. They work with all the networks, so speak to those guys if they're happy to provide that information. Otherwise it's a matter of just, you're testing, and try and spend as little as you can in order to test a network. And always, I think the other thing to try to do is to test different types of inventory, so you can choose your ad networks, try your non-incent, your incent, your native, your programmatic, and just try to test it as a media type as opposed to an ad network, because you need to understand the difference between all those different variations. That would be my first recommendation.
So it is a really very difficult question, which we cannot answer it back. It has to be we may call any of one of the app developers. This question, he should reply to us, because I cannot say Clink Ad is much better or Adatha is much better. It all depends to the app developers. Can we call upon?
Sure. Does anyone from the audience have
Raise one hand.
an opinion on how to choose the best of the 50 LinkedIn messages you're going to receive?
Anyone?
Maybe at the end.
At the end.
Ultimately, the advertising networks, the agencies, and the developers have an aligned incentive. That incentive is a successful app, and from your standpoint, a repeat customer or a long-term customer. You then have a role in some way in shaping the success or outcomes of the developers you work with. What are some of the mistakes that a developer makes when working with an advertising network or with an agency? What tips would you give them to say up front so that they can improve the chances of success?
Primarily, I would say don't put all your eggs in the same basket. So that is the primary mistake all the developers does most of the times. So it has to be a right blend of the media channels which they choose to send their advertisement, and that's where they have to focus on. And not only in the paid advertisement, they have to focus on organic installs. Ranking is a key factor. Not only the ranking, the keyword search is the most important thing. You have to rank for all your relevant keywords in the App Store search. So that is one of the primary discovery method people use to find their application. So that's what I would say, don't overestimate the power of one particular channel. It has to be a blend of all the media channels to plan their spending.
I think in terms of what I've seen, probably one of the biggest Chinese game companies listed on NASDAQ had a campaign for a game, and they obviously had a huge budget. They decided to put the campaign into 20 different networks and realized within about a week or so that they were bidding against themselves across 20 networks, pushing the price higher and higher and higher and higher on the user acquisition. So they decided to limit the number of networks that they pushed their campaign into, which of course we would support as an idea that if you work with a Minimob type proposition, we are in fact connected to 300 other networks, so we can manage the overlap on your behalf.
I would say make sure you've got the right measurement partners in place, so you can truly understand what the install's doing for you, and know your numbers. Know what you need to pay on a cost per install basis, not what the market kind of dictates to an extent, because there's always a good deal out there for you. Know what an install value provides you, whether it's in cent or non-in-cent, because different prices for different markets as well. So just understand your numbers is really important, and just try and make it as bug-free as possible, because there could be loads of issues. You spend all that money and then the installs just don't convert because of issues with that, which I know is not an easy request to make, but only do the paid marketing once you're as confident as you can be that it's bug-free.
Great. 2 minutes left. 2-minute warning. I wanted to ask one last question of the panel. Obviously, 2016 is a year of change for the app stores in general. The advertising and advertising network industry will not be spared from that change. That will also happen. Perhaps it's consolidation, perhaps it's something else. What do you think is the biggest opportunity for the developers that you're working with in 2016 that they can leverage to be more successful?
I have already said that 2016 would be a game changer. So now let's hear from my colleagues.
Yeah, for me, I would say that 2016 is going to be the year of data. So there are a lot of data available based on the mobile phone users' behavior. So it is going to be targeting. That's going to be the mantra of this year. And the people who are doing the targeting right are going to be really successful. So that's what summarizes.
I'll probably try and answer this in terms of what I think is going to be big for this year, and then developers can try and use this information. It's more, I would say, retargeting, budget shifting more from acquisition to retargeting is going to be quite big. More programmatic spends, so it's more automated. Some advertisers might want to take that kind of in-house, so they can actually have that requirement. And And fraud. I think fraud is a major issue in mobile advertising, and trying to find ways to identify the fraud is a challenge. My team are actually spending more and more time every single campaign finding the fraud, because it is a real big problem, and that could be click spamming or bots, people playing around with the attribution settings so that it works more in the ad network's favour, everything that this happens. So I think truly understanding how to prevent fraud best as possible is going to be a big thing for this year, because then the industry needs to be cleaned up.
Just to close, for the developers, obviously your creativity is your single biggest weapon, and your understanding of the audience that you want to create your app for. This is the most exciting time I've seen in mobile in 20 years, and I've been in it a long time. I feel like I'm 26 again when I see all the exciting ideas for apps and the ways that apps can get ahead of steam, whether viral or paid or whatever. And the key behind that is a little bit on from what you said, Chris, is verification. We think the ad networks and the DMPs are now going to really go into overdrive on verification. That's both for the sensible commercial argument and also to avoid fraud. So if you really know and understand your users, if you have found a great base of users, your app will survive, thrive, and make money.
Thank you very much. Panelists, appreciate it. Thanks to the audience for listening. I don't know if there are any time for questions or if there are questions.
Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. If there are no questions from the audience, then I would like to thank you for that thought-provoking talk and for sharing your insights. And could I please invite to the stage Mercy Livingston of GMASA to present the tokens of appreciation and to take a selfie with our wonderful panelists, including Imtiaz Ahmed, founder and global head of partnerships of ClinkAd.com, Colin JG Miles, Vice President of Internet QPlac, Raja Manoharan, Technical Evangelist of Adatha, Chris Steedman, Managing Director of Saatchi Mobile, and Patrick Kane of Priori Data, and our moderator for this panel.